Stillman Company, 12516 in the game. Nashville, Tennessee.
Perfect.
What'd you think?
Dead
How
on.
was it? Pretty
I
good?
looked up and I thought, holy crap, he's here.
Joe Rexrode, Paul Kaharski in for Jared Stillman today on Stillman and Company, presented by Southern Bank of Tennessee, your bank for small business. David Reed producing. We are here in the broadcasting. We are here in the. I'm reading this right off the sheet, and so I'm saying we are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we're very excited to be here. 3 hours of we are taking over Jared's show. We heard right before the show, PK, that Jared was really excited to find out that we got one of these days.
Are we obligated to scream? I have called it, for Nashville's sake, a day of relief. So you're welcome in advance, Nashville. You get some sophisticated discussion here without screaming, without conspiracy theories, without made-up nonsense. There has to be a reason. There has to be a reason for this, and I'm going to create some imaginary reason for something that there's a simple explanation to, because it could jack up my ratings, and because I've got to talk by myself for 3 hours. I might let David Reed in.
4 hours.
My heart is full.
We only do 3. He gets 4.
My heart is full to be reunited with David Reed. David,
yes.
It's a thrill for me to see you on the other side of the glass again.
So have you ever actually made it through a show by yourself without yelling? I mean, you're
I know that's
casting all these aspersions on.
Yeah, the no yelling thing is a false promise.
All it's going to take is one phone call.
My volume varies. Like, I discuss, and then I might get hot over something, and then I might, whisper something.
Look,
his volume is set at 11 the whole show.
I got to be honest, and as Willie Donick pointed this out recently, at my expense, and he's not wrong. Like, when we do, David, you just judge Jared versus Joe. I yell way more than Jared does. I mean, I'm a worse yeller than Jared.
Yeah,
so.
He kind of provokes that, though.
Yeah, but your voice is not does not send people to the psycho ward.
Yeah, I got you. So how's it been going, by the way, David, with Stilly?
I think he's a little bit hypnotized by Stilly, if I may say, based on some of my texts with him. I think he's
mesmerized,
starting to fall under the spell.
Please expound on this. How am I hypnotized by?
Well, he said one ridiculous thing, and I texted you about him, and you were kind of okay with the ridiculous thing he was saying, and I was like, oh God.
So if everyone doesn't constantly berate Stilly like you do, then they're under his charms. That's what you're saying. All right. Well, you first of all, this segment, I have some constructive criticism, not just ripping him and his takes. I have constructive criticism I would like to offer for Stilly. But first of all, you have an experience.
I have what I call a soft entrance. I believe that children are our future, Joe. And I know David joins me in this. I don't know how you feel, because you've got some children that you don't like.
I like my kids.
Yeah, 2 of them for a long time you did not like. I very nearly had you declare a favorite child.
I like, okay.
which is a strong stance, and you came very close to declaring one of your children your favorite. But
that's fair.
And David joins me in this. He's got nephews. Is there a niece in there, or just nephews?
I am now the uncle to 10 individuals. Yes, several.
So I mean,
girls.
He is spreading wisdom nonstop. I believe that children are our future, and so when I was invited to go to elementary school career day, months ago, put it on the calendar for this morning, I was overjoyed to go this morning and to talk about sports writing with kindergartners through 5th grade. And let me tell you, I think we all deal with this. A lot of high schoolers, a lot of college kids reach out to us, and they want to know about our careers. Kindergartners through 5th graders, not nearly as into it. Some of the 5th graders, maybe. Talking sports writing to kindergartners and 2nd graders, not that riveting, really.
Yeah, I've never done that. I've talked to a lot of junior high school, college.
Yeah, and so
the young kids probably don't even know what it is. Right?
So I want to confess that at one point, you're just trying to have an engaging conversation with them at some point. And one of them, you're asking them what they were interested in seeing at some of the other stations. And outside, apparently, there was a petting zoo. I don't know how they got them inside to talk to sports writers. But and some young lady told me that she really liked the goats. And I had seen early in the day from @Rainmaker 1973, Massimo, somebody I follow on Twitter, a video of goats. It says there's a place in Morocco where you can find goats perching on argania tree branches. Yes, goats on trees. And so I said, I just saw a tweet of goats on trees. Do you guys want to see this? And they're like, yeah, yeah. So I'm showing them all this thing of goats on trees. And the one little girl says to me, that looks like AI to me. And I say, well, I have to be honest, kids. I did not check if this was in fact the truth or AI. And it's part of my job to only share the truth. So if I in fact have shared AI, I've done something terrible here. So I came back to the studio, panicked, and immediately looked up whether this was in fact something real. And I got back, yes, there is indeed a real phenomenon in Morocco where goats perch on the branches of argania trees. So I was much relieved. And I'm going to tweet this out because I think people need to see this. Goats perched on trees.
Interesting.
How
So
old were
my
these- how
sports
old were
writing
these kids
career
again?
counseling day for children turned into goats on trees.
How old were these kids again?
These were second graders that I was talking to
Can they
about the
even
goats.
write now? You were talking to kids who can't even write about a career in writing.
Well,
You need a better agent.
we emphasize
Start doing
I
cursive in
was
third grade. Right?
emphasizing more the radio and broadcast elements. Hey kids, do you ever listen to the radio?
What's that?
Is that like a
What's a
podcast?
radio?
Yeah, well, we talk podcasts as well. And I focused on maybe your dad's familiar with some of this stuff.
I thought you were going to say, oh, well, I'm the sports writing goat. That's what I totally thought that the story was going.
Oh, that would have been good.
that would have been good.
Yeah, would have
But
been
at least
good.
it wasn't AI.
But yeah, thank God I wasn't spreading false. And I will retweet this for all of you to see so that you can also see the goats. And thank you to the children and their teachers for having me. This, I think it was in College Station.
You and TD both
Far
were
away.
talking to these kids today.
Yeah, we talked to them together, but TD cut out a little earlier than I did. So I was on my own when I got to the goats.
Oh, so this is your little humble brag. I did a little longer than TD today. You know, I talked to
true.
a few more kids. Yeah.
It's true. More
right.
kids were influenced by me than by TD.
Which is problematic for society.
And I did warn them never to invite Stillman, who's barely college educated.
Wow. Well, I don't know if you probably don't have constructive criticism. You probably just
I have some constructive criticism.
insults. All right. Well, here's my constructive criticism of Stilly. Okay. First of all, never say anywho ever again. Anywho is like,
Sounds like your grandma.
well,
that's
that's like Jim Carrey, right? Isn't it like Jim Carrey, like on In Living Color? Like, anywho, no, don't do that ever again. He also says with which all the time when it doesn't apply. Like, it just makes no. David, do you know what I'm talking about?
I haven't caught that one, but the whole anywho makes him sound like another one of his favorite phrases, old pawpaw.
Exactly. No, I want you to watch the with which. He says it for no reason. He's like, well, you know, the receivers with which they had last year. I'm like, the receivers that they had last year. With which means it says no place in this sentence, and I'm already yelling.
He can't do the simple over the complicated. He wants the complicated.
And then also, which seems to be an issue for Jared. Now, when you say, by the way, folks, the phone and text line today, please participate, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, 615-737-1025. 615-731. Okay. 615-737-1025, which is our number. Just say that's our number. Why do you have to say which is our number?
Because
David,
it's longer.
You know what I'm saying,
I
David?
know why. I'll tell you why he
Back
has
me
to
up.
do it. Because he has to fill out his entire show, and he does it alone. It says and company, but there's no company. And in order to fill out the time, every time he says that, he gains a few seconds. And anything he can do to gain a few seconds, he does.
Dude, he would take a fifth hour if he could. You are totally wrong on that. That's all I've got. I mean, we can talk
That's
about
all you've got?
Yeah, we can talk about his takes, but I'm talking about specific mechanics of doing the show. That's all I've got. What have you got?
All right, here's what I've got. The guy is always in search of complicated things to explain simple things.
You're getting philosophical.
Yes,
here.
I'm getting
Okay,
philosophical.
You're getting deep here.
Okay.
All right.
So a couple weeks ago, he was trying to explain to people this paper, The Loser's Curse, Decision-Making and Market Efficiency in the National Football League Draft. This is a 16-page, dense academic language paper. 16 pages. It's written by a guy from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania and a guy from the Booth School of Business at the University of Chicago. It has like incredibly complex equations. M I over MI plus K equals E, S parentheses I over E, S parentheses I plus K parentheses. There's no way. I have no idea what any of this means. And I'm of superior intellect to Jared Stillman.
I was going to say, you went to Columbia. Another
As
chance for
are
a humble
you.
brag.
As
Another
are
chance for a
you.
humble brag for you. You went to
Listen,
Columbia.
all of us, David, you, people at the other radio station who broke this down in a beautiful way on a podcast are superior to Jared. He wanted us all to believe that he understood this paper, that Chad Brinker read this paper, and absolutely, because Chad Brinker went to the Northwestern, a guy that went to Northwestern and likes analytics automatically loves this paper because two other smart guys wrote it. And therefore, Chad Brinker absolutely wanted to trade out of number one. And there had to be a reason that he didn't trade out of number one. And okay, now I have to find the most logical reason that he didn't trade out of number one. It's because Amy Adams Strunk didn't want to pay the salaries of all the picks they could have gotten back. When, in fact, something that he really needs to study, which is called Occam's razor, the simplest explanation is usually the right explanation, says
definitely not a subscription of
would
Jared.
say that the Titans did what every other team does. Well, you have the number one pick and you need a quarterback. You take the best quarterback. Look at the history of the NFL.
Doesn't mean they should.
It doesn't mean they should, but it's what they do. And it's what everyone else has done. Many of those teams with smart general managers who also had thoughts about analytics and whatever. And so here's what I would urge. There are a lot of people listening to this show who listen to this time slot on a regular basis because for some reason they love Stillbilly.
Or they hate listen.
Well, yeah, I think
he
most
has
of,
said
I
that,
think
and
most
I
of
think
them,
he's right.
I think most of them hate listen. But what somebody ought to do out there, and I'm going to tweet out a picture of this book cover. If Stillman pretends to read this 16-page dense educational document, he should read a book called Life is Simple: How Occam's Razor Set Science Free and Unlocked the Universe. And it might unlock some universe for Jared Stillman. It's by John Joe, so it's got a Southern guy name flavor to it, John Joe McFadden. If Jared Stillman would actually read this book cover to cover, I think it could change his life and make Nashville radio 1 billion times better. Somebody send it to him.
Wow. Okay. Well, we have a lot of stuff to get to. We got Derrick Henry with an extension. We got some Jeff Simmons news. We got it's scheduled day. And I do want to get into what you mentioned there about Amy Adams Strunk and the first pick. People are asking, PK, about Joe versus PK to replace Jared versus Joe Day. You want to do this?
I'm fine with doing it, but you and I are not generally at odds the way the world is generally at odds with Stillman.
That's okay. Yeah, I mean, we could still have it. It's just a debate thing. I'll see if Vingan.
I'm not into faux debate.
Well, it's not going to be faux. Believe me, I will not have to faux anything in terms of debating you. All right, we come back. We will get into some of those news items. Some of those news items.
All right.
Oh, boy. It's going to be a great show. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Joe Rexrode, Paul Kaharski in for Jared. David Reed producing. And we actually are going to get to some of our own takes here, Paul. Have you sent your little tweet ripping Jared? You got that out yet?
Yeah, I sent out the book.
Okay. You sent out the book, the link to the book?
The cover of the book.
The cover of the book. All right. Occam's razor. It's a good idea. Okay, we got some news items. First of all, Derrick Henry gets an extension with the Ravens. Biggest deal ever for a running back over 30. I guess it's not a big surprise, but I mean, good for him.
He signed 2 years, right, when he got there, and now he signs 2 years. It's more money for a guy that went there and produced in a big way.
Tore it up
in the first year, and there's no reason. I mean, he's going to hit a wall at some point, but there's not an indication that it's soon.
Yeah. I mean, he's busted through the Hall of Fame wall, right? Every once in a while, I just check in with you. Yeah.
Has to me.
So good for Derrick Henry. Less positive news. We give credit to Terry McCormick here. I believe that's correct.
Yes.
Jeff Simmons has an issue defending a lawsuit in Mississippi alleging issues with support payments for his son. What can you tell us about this, PK?
Well, basically, he's being accused by a woman, the mother and primary caretaker for the couple's 6-year-old special needs son. She's requested an emergency hearing, basically looking to modify an agreement that he's responsible for $6,000 a month in child support, as well as paying health insurance and medical bills. Latest motion says that he's failed to pay for needed speech communication device for the child. And she also requests a special wheelchair accessible vehicle as part of her request to increase Simmons' contributions. Child suffers from Joubert syndrome, which, according to the Cleveland Clinic, is a rare genetic disorder where a portion of a child's fetal brain does not fully develop and can lead to muscle control and breathing issues, among other effects. So a fight between them over what he's contributing towards the child's care.
No comment on his end, Titans end, anything like that at this
nothing
point?
In here from the Titans. I've reached out to the Titans asking if they have any comment, or if Jeff, through them, has had any comment. I would expect them to either say no or to say, we're aware of the situation, whatever. I've looked up some previous stuff. I never wrote anything of it. Another woman who showed me some court stuff that resolved an issue as to whether he was the parent of another child, that said that he was, and cleared up an argument in court about child support. So I know this is not the first incident or court. This is not the first child support issue that has gone to court involving Jeff Simmons. I can say that.
Yeah. See, without knowing anything, obviously, I know what you just read. Terry McCormick had a report on this. I think in general, it kind of speaks to, like, take care of your stuff.
Right. And it doesn't matter in terms of the football player, but I think you can say this is a guy who's their Walter Payton Man of the Year candidate multiple times. It doesn't put a great shine on him that any of this is going on, whether it's fair or not, per se. I understand. I don't know anything about family court. I can't pretend to know anything about family court. Women can be filing unreasonable claims in family court, and I don't know if this is reasonable or unreasonable, but it's out there. And at least for the second time, somebody out there.
In lighter Titans news, it's just a huge day, huge news day in the NFL, PK. It's almost like the Super Bowl, right? It's the schedule release day, which I feel like every year I feel like this year there's way more leaks. Am I wrong about this? I feel like the leaks have been more and have been over more days.
Well, I think it's bound to leak more when you're starting the release of schedule news on Monday and doing some on Monday and some on Tuesday. and some on Wednesday morning because you want some of it on Good Morning America and on the outlets that some of these games are going to do. And so if they don't want it released, then they really have to make it a Wednesday night thing that's under tight wraps. It doesn't have to be as widely known by as many people as it's known by if you want to contain it. So I don't know that they're as frustrated by the leaks. Ultimately, everybody wants their team's full schedule, and they can't have that until tonight.
So we know the Titans, and if you know PK, you call it out. Who, I think your buddy Jordan Schultz.
I said everybody should just ignore Jordan Schultz's report of the Denver game, the way he ignores everybody else's reporting, and then we'll all be surprised by it tonight, the way he's surprised that other people have reported stuff when he reports.
Why don't you just tweet it out right now and pretend like you broke it? Go ahead. Why not? Breaking. And then tag him.
Titans opening at Denver.
Yeah, and then tag him. Hey, other NFL reporters, check this out. You should do that. But we know that, right? I mean,
according to him.
To him, he's the only one. Titans at Broncos would be Cam Ward's presumed debut. Tough one.
Tough defense.
Tough. Yeah, good defense. Pretty good team last year. On the road, tough place to play anyway. You got the elevation, all that stuff. And then who reported this? I don't know.
I don't know either.
I heard
Willie. I just heard it from you guys.
Yeah, I heard Willie and D-Mace talking about this. So I don't know if you guys know in there, but someone reported that the Rams are going to be here week 2. And so that
is another difficult game.
Yeah.
A team that has a tendency to be good, has been to the playoffs, and at a time where the big question is about Brian Callahan and what can he do. He's going against 2 big-time coaches out of the gate, and Sean Payton and McVay.
Titans are like, hey, can our rookie quarterback get an AFC South
how
team,
about
please? Can we get some
Jaguars
rivalry going here? Can we get some Colts in here, a little Daniel Jones? So sounds tough from the start. Primetime games for the Titans, PK.
I think probably one
Thursday.
I tweeted
for
out early not to have early today. That was my schedule. Nugget. Don't have high expectations. Not that anybody should have had high expectations.
2 would be the max.
Cam
right?
Ward is not, from what I've been told, Cam Ward is not countering the 3-14 thing very strongly.
Yeah, I think Cam Ward doesn't move the needle like Caleb Williams. Right? It's the same idea of like, if there's a guy everyone wants at 1, then maybe that changes the math.
Well, Caleb Williams
he was
also
the first QB in this class.
Right, and Caleb Ward also moves the needles because he's playing for the Bears, and the Bears are a big draw. And a lot of people on Twitter have problem with this. It's a combination. It's not a Cam Ward disrespect. It's a Cam Ward bad team, bad market combination.
Yeah. So we need some Pats, Vrabel in here.
That to me would be the ideal. That should be week 3. Get in the first 6 weeks for sure before either of those teams has a chance to be bad. And I don't know that I think the Patriots will be on a better course than the Titans, but I think the Patriots probably need a year as well. Now they
might be getting overhyped a little bit.
Yeah, I think they've been unbelievable sweethearts through this offseason.
Well, that sweetheart Vrabel.
Yes.
That's sweetie pie Vrabel. Boy, we miss him.
Yeah. So I think that would be a good game to play early. And that's a great storyline. Again, Titans fans are going to be upset because the great part of the storyline isn't the Titans part of the storyline necessarily.
Yeah, that's good. Been going around a lot. All right, we come back. We are going to get into this conversation about, really it's about Amy Adams-Strunk and how she wants this team run and what matters most to her. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Nashville's best deal of the week. Bavarian Beer House, conveniently located at Opry Mills Mall. Enjoy beer, food, music, and fun at Nashville's only authentic German beer hall where it's Oktoberfest every day. Head to the game, Nashville.com/deals now. You get a $50 gift card for only $25 at Bavarian Beer House while supplies last. Welcome back in to Stillman and Company. Joe Rex showed Paul Kaharski in for Jared. David reproducing. I guess Jared's in, was he in Costa Rica? Is that right? Costa Rica, but I know he is just trembling on the beach as he listens to this. Hope
what
that
kind of vacation is it if he's still
destroy his program? What's that?
What kind of vacation is it if he's still listening?
Oh, he
you go on vacation
I know
and
he
listen to
has
Robbie
been.
and Rex Road?
No, I know that he has been, because he was like texting us during our show the other day. It's like, dude, go to the beach. Dude, like his girlfriend must be furious with him. We're going to talk about, this is actually, I guess, is Jared inspired. There's some people in the text line, by the way, who are saying, like, Jared lives rent free in our heads. Like, we're doing his show. I mean, like, we're going to talk about him, But this is the take that kind of inspired. Well, the thing you mentioned, PK, was an offshoot, I guess, right? It was like, because of this obviously must be what Brinker believes. So there's no way he would, of his own volition, decide to go with Cam Ward number 1. So then that gets into, again, the conspiracy theory. We got to get into NBA draft lottery at some point.
Also, he's a part of a collaboration. I know collaboration's now a dirty word because they stained it with their last GM, who was a foolish hire, who made terrible decisions. So they can't use the word collaborate.
You just have to blame him for everything
until it's recycled and washed for 3 years until they fire the next guy, and then they can recycle it. But he's part of a collaboration, whether you're willing to admit that or not. Chad Brinker didn't dictate things and go in there and dictate.
But he
things.
he is at the top of the pyramid, right?
He is at the top of the pyramid, but also Borgonzi got a job. I can't remember what the official language is. It's the chief football officer in the language of the league, or whatever that language is, which in fact has a lot of power, not the final say per se, but
that's fine. But the point is, the theory that spun out of this is, this must be Amy Adams Strunk deciding, looking at the money. And I think, he went through, like, what it was. Reed, do you remember this?
I do.
He was it 50 or 100 million?
100 million.
He said that basically
all these picks would have totaled up to $100 million this year, I guess.
Well, no, he's saying if you had signed like a Darnold, then now that on your payroll is a totally right.
Plus the third pick in this draft, plus the first pick in next draft, plus the second pick in this draft, second round pick in this draft, plus the second round pick in that draft. I think it was totaling up what you would have gotten back from the Giants in this draft. So he says that she wouldn't have paid $100 million to be a significantly better football team. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, like, with
she paid for Bud Dupree. She paid. I mean, this idea that they don't pay is nonsense. They pay stupidly, but they pay.
Yeah. So again, trying to find a reason beyond the reason is, I mean, I think that they fell in love with Cam Ward as a prospect. Like, again,
which teams do repeatedly.
Like it or not, criticize it or not, believe it's going to work or not. That's all fine. But yeah, I mean, I think that this is probably, to your point, the simplest explanation is the right one. But let's seriously, like, if you could possibly believe that, then a couple of things would have to be true. One is that there's basically, like, there's no benefit financially for winning. You know what I mean? Because if you are doing that, if you are hiring football people and then you are not letting them do their jobs, like, you're signing up to lose, right? I mean, and I understand we can say, well, does Amy Adams Strunk get that or get anything? That's fine. But I hope so still through all this. You don't think she understands that?
You don't think she'd rather be out at the tailgates and everybody saying, "Oh, hey, Miss Amy, Miss Amy, Miss Amy," instead of saying, "Oh my God, she has no idea what she's doing." You don't think that's worth things to her? And you don't think that $100 million comes back? It's an investment. Well, investments have returns. I know it's hard to comprehend right now if you're looking at your 401k, but investments have returns.
Yeah, but and also if we're talking about Amy being maybe, again, well, she's losing so much, she doesn't want to spend. Well, then, I mean, you telling me that these GM retreads that they've hired, it came cheap? I would not assume so.
No.
I would assume that the
Ziegler and McKenzie are making good salaries.
The composition of the front office suggests that there's more investment in the front office. I mean, it suggests that you would think that there would be, right? Considering their track records.
Look, they hired.
It's certainly not a big step down. I mean, you go from, obviously, you're paying Rand, first of all, to go away, which, of course, Amy's done a lot of paying people to go away in recent years. But also, these guys, yeah, they're making good money, right?
It's symbolic, too. They hired Browns director of player personnel, Dan Sagany, away from the Browns. Now, he's very well respected by the Browns. His contract was up. Do we think the Browns said, go? I think the Browns probably wanted him. I think the Titans probably outbid the Browns for him. Now, do the Browns hesitate to spend money? They guaranteed $300 million to a masseuse addict who was being inappropriate with women. I don't think the Browns have a problem spending money. The Titans got this guy away from the Browns. I think this idea that she's afraid of spending money is fiction created to get people to listen to 2 hours of radio.
Yeah, like Mike says, Amy's not brilliant. No one's saying that, but
she's not brilliant.
You have to be. I mean, again, if you're in her position, you are a billionaire. This investment is incredibly fruitful. Okay, the having an NFL franchise is a great thing financially. You are going to win. You got the stadium built. You're going to do things to basically nitpick. $100 million is nitpicking.
And you think
at the expense of trying to win? If anything, I could buy we just need an exciting young quarterback. I could buy that kind of advice from the owner. Like, I really like this guy. What do you think?
But this theory,
this idea that you would put in a cap, your own cap, is so absurd.
This theory suggests that they went to her and said, this isn't the guy. This isn't what's best for our football team. And she said, no, do it anyway.
Well, no, but the way that I heard him explain it was, here's the number. So the only way to make the number, you cannot possibly make the number if you're signing a veteran, right? So it's a different order of things.
Well, here's another thing in the simplicity thing. They didn't like Sam Darnold. They top to bottom,
which is not a crazy
maybe
thing.
Some people did.
Yeah, I did.
But top to bottom, well, you're not in the front office.
I understand this.
But those 5 key people, there was not a universal like of Sam Darnold there. Now, you could criticize that. If you disagree with it, that's fine. But I know for a fact there was not universal agreement on Sam Darnold being an answer for them. Is it crazy, unreal? I'm not a big Cam Ward guy coming in. Clean slate. I'm excited to see what he does. But is it crazy for them to say, we'd rather try with Cam Ward and go forward here and develop a young guy than sign a veteran Sam Darnold who previous to this year turned the ball over at a rate comparable or beyond Will Levis? That's not crazy.
No, it's not crazy. Again, I thought he was really good last year. I thought he proved quite a bit. He had a good supporting cast. But no, it's not crazy. What about Paul, I think my coworker Diana Rossini reported, that there were people who wanted to trade back, right? So it's at one point there was some kind of discussion.
I think early that it was under consideration. Gradually, and this is my thinking. I think the draft is too late. I think you should draft at the end of March, not the end of April, because you've got an additional month there to convince yourself into things. I think it'd be healthier for the players to be with the team a month earlier. Wouldn't you rather have another month for your guy to be a football player with your team instead of an athlete training for pro days and an additional month for you to convince yourself of things? Haven't you made mistakes where you say, we maybe overthought that for 3 extra weeks? I bet you every team would give you examples in the past where those 3 extra weeks didn't serve us well on guy X, Y, or Z. More so than those 3 extra weeks really gave us an opportunity to find A, B, and C. So I think they'll never change. They'll never change it because of their calendar.
No, the NFL is like, no, this is just fine.
Yeah.
We need the whole thing.
But I think
out. You're cutting into mock draft season, man. You can't.
I think
it
does a disservice though to the process and helps things happen. Like, we've got this much more time to continue to look at. Hey, remember this clip? Look how good he looks. Look how good he looks. I'll see what he's doing with his foot there. We don't really like that, but look at the rest of it.
All right, we've blown up one conspiracy theory. I think I need to get to another one, and maybe PK buys into it. We'll talk about that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 through the game. All right, programming. Yes, programming note here on Stillman and Company, everybody. 102.5, 106 through the game. So we're going to do Jared versus Joe at 5 o'clock, but it's going to be PK versus Joe. Adam Vingan will call in to moderate. So there you go.
I'm semi-nervous about this because you've got like a home field advantage, and I don't really know how it works because I don't listen to debate.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, he'll ask a question, and I've had this with Jared versus Joe where we agreed on like every single thing, and Caroline was
sounds like
very
really
frustrated.
compelling radio.
Yeah, well, it's we will speak about relevant topics. Although I guess I shouldn't guarantee that. I mean, Bingham could come up with anything. He may come up with like our favorite Simpsons.
I mean, today I heard him do 5 minutes about sandals.
Really?
Yeah. So
what
it
was
didn't
the point?
feel like a relevant topic.
Well, give me the gist.
He doesn't like people wearing sockless footwear. Men.
Really? So, like, if I go to the beach,
No, only to and from beach.
Oh, okay.
Or pool.
You can't just walk around. I walk around in flip-flops sometimes.
Yeah, he doesn't care for that.
Interesting.
Already, we've spent too much time on it.
This is fascinating. Well, we may need to yell at Vingan when he pops in at 5. So there you go. Let's talk conspiracy on this one. I actually, like, I'm not surprised. Like, I knew it was going to happen because you saw how everything played out the last few months in the NBA. But, like, it really is, like, crazy stupid to think that the NBA could have rigged the lottery.
I agree. I'm totally anti-conspiracy theory. But we just talked about it in the break. 7 times in 40 years, the team in line for the number 1 pick has gotten the number 1 pick. Right. That's 17.5% of the time. So
you think that validates conspiracy theories?
I think it lends itself. You're inviting conspiracy theories. And I think the lottery sucks. It's arranged poorly. That's far too little. There are too many teams. The 10th team, the 8th team shouldn't have a 1.8 chance at the number 1 pick. And it should have a 0% chance at the number 1 pick. You should cut it off at 4. That's enough.
Well,
the
Dallas
4th worst team should have a chance at the number 1 pick. The 5th worst team should have a 0% chance at the number 1 pick.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think you could definitely make a case against Dallas because they were in the play. They do this plan. I mean, to me, if you're in the plan, and Dallas won a game in the plan, which, by the way, if the NBA had this big conspiracy, my goodness, did Dallas almost screw it up. They win a play-in game, and then they're trying to beat Memphis and get in the playoffs. So then you totally blow up your entire stupid plan.
It looks fishy, though. When Wemby ends up in San Antonio, premier franchise, when Dallas, which has been a solid franchise, just dealt their big guy to your premier franchise or one of your 2 premier franchises, the Lakers, and then ends up with the number 1 pick and a premier player coming out. I think all these conspiracy people are crazy, but you're giving them fuel.
Yeah, well, I'm not really following you on San Antonio. I mean, yeah, they have won championships. They have been great. Now, I'll buy a little bit on market because like L.A. and New York. Also, if you want to go back to 85 and Patrick Ewing, now that is at least mechanically it's possible because all it is David Stern taking an envelope. So you could have a very small group of people, and people have written about this
frozen envelope,
the frozen envelope, right? Like that's it. I mean, I generally subscribe to the idea of like think risk reward, and if you are like Patrick Ewing was going to be a star in the NBA, and if he's a star with the Atlanta Hawks, he's still a star in the NBA. That's the thing. People don't like LeBron James in Cleveland was LeBron James in Cleveland. That's what people are kind of missing here. If you have stars, you're going to be fine.
Right.
But at least at least it's possible to do that with a small group of people. In this case, you're asking Ernst & Young and to commit federal fraud, for one thing, and all these other people be involved in it, and everyone keep their mouths shut, and also tell me how you set it up with the ping pong balls.
I think they like the conversation. Otherwise, they put the ping pong balls on the damn stage. I mean, what's the rationale for doing it behind the scenes?
Yeah.
I haven't heard a good explanation of that.
That's fine. I mean, yeah.
And now the same numbers come up or whatever, but you can find a way to set it up that it's not a repeat thing.
Yeah.
There's got to be an easy way to set it up that you can do it very publicly in front of a lot of cameras.
That's fine. But
so
again,
fix it. Fix it. The NBA doesn't fix anything. They got a 3-point problem. They haven't fixed anything. They put stuff in place and they leave it in place for 40 years. When there's questions about it. Now, I agree with you on the conspiracy theory. It's ridiculous because when Zion Williamson came out, Knicks fans were crazy for it. The Knicks had a decent percent chance for it. if the league wanted to set it up for big market and everything, at the time, we didn't know his feet were going to be horrific and he was going to be, on the verge of busting.
Zion in New Orleans is what no one wanted in the league.
So there's one. But you can also, I can hear the conspiracy theorists saying, well, once in a while, you got to throw a bone to the other side.
Sure. Right.
And it's still 17.5% of the worst team getting what they deserve.
And that's another thing on the math. 1.8% is low, but it's like 1.8% basically means you take a deck of cards and say, if you pull up the 6 of hearts, you get $1 million. I mean, you probably won't, but it's not winning the lottery. And
it is winning the lottery. If you get the number one pick with 1.8%, you've won the lottery.
But if you win the lottery in human, the actual lottery, it's not 1.8%, buddy. Okay. Right. And also the top, I believe it was 12% for the 3 teams at the top. I mean, okay, so it's 12% for each of them to get this.
That's not high enough.
It's not 83%.
That's not high enough. What's a reasonable percentage for them? I would say it should be in the 20 range.
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with you on the idea of tiering it to where
it's really stacked.
It would be the very
4
or 5 worst. Again, then the conversation late in the year is like, oh, look, can you get into that last tier? Who's tanking their, whatever
to get into the 4?
But I don't disagree. Like when you open it up to anybody in the playoffs, and especially now that you have a play-in, they shouldn't have been eligible. But it's pretty dumb. It's pretty dumb. And it's like, it's gotten too much discussion to me, and I don't know if that's just because, I don't know. I feel like the NBA
people are pissed because I think fairly, I think it's based in something actually good for a change. People like justice and they look at Washington and Utah and it's not the same big market, small market of baseball, but it starts to feel that way when there's no justice. Now, I don't feel bad for teams that tank it. Washington apparently was really tanking it hard all year. And I don't want them rewarded for tanking it. But what did they wind up? Where did Washington
I don't even remember. So, I mean, a couple of those teams, dropped like the Preds just did in their lottery, by the way. They ended up the 3rd worst team and they drop and take the 5th pick.
Yeah, and I think there's such a variance. Look, I'm peripheral NBA at best, but there's such a variance where a team like Washington is valuing the number 1 pick or a high pick so much, and the Knicks are giving away 5 of them for Bridges. So a team that's on the verge or feels like they're 1 play away will throw away 5 first-round picks. And another team will say, our whole rebuild could be keyed on flat. 1 player. Yeah. That's quite a variance from a team that would be drafting 25th, conceivably, or the Knicks this year be drafting dead last because they're going to win the whole thing.
Oh, well, there we go.
To the team that's drafting at the other end. There's in what league is it that far apart? Feels too far apart.
Yeah. Speaking of leagues and lotteries, Mike Greenberg said the NFL should do this.
Look, I think the NFL probably should do it, but not to any extreme. Maybe top 3 picks, something like that. It would be the biggest rated TV show ever, like he says, but I don't know that the league needs to go searching for one more top rated TV show. And he's making it like do it for the entire league to some degree where everybody finds out their draft spot. I think that first off runs just so much against the history. Does the history not matter at all of how the league has been? Does everything have to be newfangled?
Also, to me, like you do this, I guess you can get another item of interest. They don't need it. They don't. Like in this league, to me, you don't have to worry about tanking. Yes. A decision, lineup decisions and things like that do happen, but it's not. There is tanking that goes on in these other sports.
I do think, though, with this, the one good point he makes with the 17th and the inevitable 18th game, teams are going to be further out sooner, faster, and be able to make that decision. Like, hey, we had nothing going for us here at the end. We're firing our coach early, or we're firing our GM early, and these games are meaningless, and we can play young guys, and we can do more things that are, in effect, tanking. and there'll be more of a battle amongst the worst teams to come in last, which is going to make the end of season scenarios more almost like the EPL. Like if there was relegation, there would really be a fight for
I'm
it.
for that.
It would be a lot more entertaining if there were relegation instead of the number one pick in the draft for it. So I can see the case building over time with that 17th and 18th game for how irrelevant some teams are going to be faster.
I'm all for worst team in the FC South joining the SEC. All right, when we come back, we got PK Piece at paulcarsky.com, Cam Ward, supporting cast, and the Titans' history we're going to get into. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, hour 2. 102.5, 106.3 The Game, presented by Southern Macon, Tennessee, your bank for small business. Joe Rexrow, Paul Karski in for Jared, with David Reed producing, reuniting with PK.
It's touching.
Weaning himself off Stilly for a week.
Nice vacation. Look, a guy comes in, hasn't been at it too long, conveniently gets a Stillman break pretty early.
Yeah, it may have actually come at a pretty convenient time.
Load management.
And then
as they
gets,
say.
gets
Speaking of the NBA.
one of his
I don't
old
wanna blow out
boys
my
comes
Achilles.
in and gives him a real, delightful.
I know, almost feel
Wednesday.
40 again. This is like old
Yeah.
times.
You are a true delight, aren't you?
Mhm.
We are broadcasting for the Bisbee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. So you wrote a piece, PK at paulkarski.com, breaking down Cam Ward and the supporting cast. We've talked quite a bit about that, but I thought you did a nice job of laying out for everyone the comparisons of the previous attempts at what the Titans are trying to do right now with Cam Ward.
So we're looking at Vince Young, 2006, Jake Locker, 2011, Marcus Mariota, 2015, Will Levis, 2023. You can argue about including him as a second rounder. I did.
I think you were right to include him.
Yeah. So let's look at what they had in terms of their wide receiver group. This is as rookies. Wide receiver group, running back group, tight end group, offensive line. Who had it best? All right. And I'll go backwards here. Let's start with offensive line. And who had it best? And then how close is it now? So offensive line, Vince Young had a pretty good offensive line. Michael Roos, Jacob Bell, Kevin Mawai, Benji Olsen, David Stewart. Roos, Mawai, Olsen, Stewart. That's a good four-pack there. You got a Hall of Famer at center.
Line, man.
You got two tackles who had great careers. And Benji Olsen was, a rugged, big-time guard for this team for a long time. None of these other lines. I mean, Jake Locker still had Roos and Stewart further along by a lot. But he had Leroy Harris, Eugene Amano, and Jake Scott in the middle. Jake Scott, a pretty good player. Harris and Amano were guys that were, made into players by Mike Munchak. No insult to them. I think they'd tell you that. Marcus had Lawan, a combination of Byron Bell and Quentin Spain, a combination of Brian Schwenke and Andy Gallick, Chance Warmack, who's a huge disappointment, a combination of Jeremiah Potassi and Byron Bell. That's not
terrible.
Good.
Marcus is the example of the guy who got a complete turnaround up front year 2.
Yeah.
And part of that was Lawan also,
yeah.
but Conklin and Ben Jones.
And that's what you hope for in year 2 of Bill Callahan, not the quarterback,
right.
but and the coach.
Yeah, you need this year to be reminiscent of that year 2. I don't know that it will be, but that's what you need.
Levis, well documented. Dillard, Skoronski, Brewer, Brunskill, Radens / Hubbard. That was the disaster line. So Ward with Moore, Skoronski, Cushenberry, Zeitler, Latham, you hope is better. But the winner of that is easily Vince Young. He had a great offensive line. Compared to what we've gotten used to over the last couple of years, that offensive line looks like, a great all-time offensive line. Winner, Vince Young. All right,
Congrats, Vince.
Running backs. Vince Young had Travis Henry, Lendell White, Chris Brown. Compared to what this franchise has done at running back, Locker had Chris Johnson. That's really all you need to say. Javon Ringer, Jamie Harper, Ahmad Hall was the fullback.
Javon Ringer, love that guy.
Mariota had the guy I think is the worst starting running back in the history of the Tennessee franchise, Antonio Andrews. Not fast, not elusive, not particularly powerful. All of the things you don't want.
Not good at running the football. Other than that, he was fine.
And he was backed up by Dexter McCluster, David Cobb, and Bishop Sankey, one of the worst draft picks in the history of the franchise.
Sankey or Shanky?
Somebody we know called him Shanky. And nobody really cared because he was so irrelevant. The mispronunciation didn't bother people.
And by the way, again,
the running back or the person who called him that?
Both.
Okay.
Levis, Derrick Henry, and Tajay Spears, and Spears didn't matter.
Real quick. And by the way, year 2 Mariota, you go DeMarco Murray, Derrick Henry.
Yeah, slide up.
Again, talk about, and that's first year GM coming in and, doing some stuff.
Levis, Henry, Spears. Ward's going to have Pollard, Spears, Mullings. Easy win there for Levis. Derrick Henry by himself wins the categories. The best player in your franchise's history of very good running backs. You can argue him and Earl Campbell, Hall of Fame running back, I suppose. So we go to tight ends. Tight ends, Mariota had Delaney Walker, which is kind of a conversation stopper there by himself, with Fasano and Craig Stevens. Fasano, good role player, good locker room guy. Stevens, good blocker. Levis, sorry. No, I'm going the wrong way. Sorry. Vince Young, I should have started with. Bo Scaife, Ben Troop, Ben Hartsock. Troop, big disappointment. Scaife, surprisingly good player for what he was, but not a great group. Locker had Jared Cook, who played his best football after here.
Yeah.
Craig Stevens, Daniel Graham. Marcus, Delaney Walker, Fasano, Craig Stevens. Pretty good. Levis, Chig, and Wiley. And now going forward for Ward, Chig, Gunnar Helm, Wiley. Maybe Odakoya or David Martin Robinson. I think that's pretty clearly Mariota. Delaney Walker by himself, right?
Yes. Absolutely. No question about it. I mean, and wasn't 15 the year he had like 106 catches or something too? Or was that the year before that?
He topped 1,000 yards receiving that year, had 6 TDs for a 3-win team.
Yeah. That's an easy win.
That's pretty strong. And then we did offensive line.
We've done offensive line.
We haven't done receivers.
We've done receivers.
So, this is really
receivers
unbelievably telling. You're going to want to hold your nose during this because you've forgotten how bad. Vince Young, and this is an order of production, yardage production. Vince Young had Drew Bennett, Brandon Jones, Bobby Wade, Roydell Williams, and David Givens, who got hurt very quickly.
I'm gaining respect. I mean, the offensive line, I think Vince Young, winning Rookie of the Year, tells you a little bit about like offensive line mattering, but also it's pretty impressive what he did with the supporting cast.
No, he surprised the league with everything, and then the mind and everything fell apart. Marcus had Kendall Wright, incredibly slow. Harry Douglas, probably slower. Dorial Green Beckham, who could run but not catch. Justin Hunter, who could run but not catch. I mean, that is a woeful group. Will Levis had DeAndre Hopkins, NWI, Chris Moore, who made a bunch of big plays.
Yeah.
Like he made a play a game for a while. Traylon Burks, Kyle Phillips. Cam Ward, we know he's going to have Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, Traylon Burks if he bounces back or not. I keep slotting him high based on, what he could have been or should be, even though we know he's not going to be that. Van Jefferson, Isle Manor, DK, Oliver, Restrepo. That, to me, wins. Now, it doesn't win because it's good. It wins because the other 4 sucked.
Yeah.
Sucked.
Yeah, it's relatively speaking, it's the best. There is one, Calvin Ridley's a good player. So now Hopkins was a good player. And I guess you can make the case like Hopkins, you could make the case was the best individual season of these. I don't know if that's true statistically, but I think he was a consistently good player that year. We were all surprised that they finally had a veteran who actually still had game left and did good things, even though the team was bad. But there are a lot of guys in this room this year that at least you have hope for. And obviously when you draft 2 receivers in the top 4 rounds, they're both 4th rounds, but still you draft 2 receivers where they drafted them. Plus you get the UDFA that everyone's excited about, even though there's probably a little more attention on than he should get. Yeah, that's the best group.
But I mean, if you think about this overall, Joe, Drew Bennett is a pretty good player. Travis Henry, that offensive line, the Vince Young offensive line, Roos, Mawai, Olsen, Stewart, that's very good. Nate Washington was a very solid player, played 6 years. In this receiver setting, terrific.
Yeah.
Right? Chris Johnson, terrific. Delaney Walker, terrific. Lawan at his peak, terrific. Hopkins, tail end of his career, right?
But remember,
Derrick Henry, Hall of Famer. How many great players in this long list of players are there? So few. So few.
Yeah.
You take snapshots like this, and I follow his team super closely. And I go back and look at this and remember just how bad it is. You become numb to the pain.
Well, and it's, to me, it's obviously Locker didn't play a ton, so it's hard to judge him.
Locker didn't play a lot that year, by the way. He only played in 6 games and
Right.
he didn't start. So it's kind of unfair to him. It really is the next year, his talent. but that also wasn't
right. But the point is, we're trying to compare what the Titans have had around these guys when they've come in. I mean, to me, this speaks to when you look at Young's performance, and it really, first of all, it is kind of impressive what Mariota did given that group. My goodness,
one guy had one good thing. Vince had good offensive line.
I mean, but Mariota's
Levis had Henry.
Best year was the next year, and they got way better in so many spots. But I think what this tells me is if the Titans have fixed offensive line, which is a gigantic if, but if they have, then I think you will end up after next year making the case that this has been the most supported rookie, I think. Now again, that's also presuming
a lot of coin flips at wide receiver. A lot of coin flips at wide receiver.
But it's got a chance. Doesn't mean it's still good relative to the NFL.
It's good relative to his peers.
To Titans history.
His two-tone blue peers.
Yeah.
So, but that's not, you can't say, I mean, there's no context that they would have such a conversation. We can say, hey, Cam, you got a better chance than Jake Locker.
Yeah.
Who didn't have a chance, mostly because Jake Locker wasn't very good.
The Titans should print this out and have it ready to show him if need be. Like, look at some of these guys.
Yeah, we know you're struggling, but at least you're not Jake or Marcus.
And then not to Stilly. Look at these Scarbinis. See, there's one I like. I like that Stillyism. Scarbinis. We come back. We'll continue the discussion. Cam Ward and the support he is getting from the Tennessee Titans on that offense.
What do you think out there?
Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 through the game. Joe Rex, Paul Kaharski, David Reed here. And we've we've had a ton of texts. I've been very bad on the text. I've driven my WilsonCountyHigh.com.
Yeah, get better.
I know. I've got a lot of stuff going on. We have a really interesting little tidbit someone threw on here on the text line about receiving room pay. But we've got some callers here. Bob on the phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHigh.com. Bob, what's going on?
Hey, guys. Hey, just want to go back where you were talking about, Paul, you talked about the draft needs to be about a month earlier.
Yeah, that would be my preference.
Well, going to exactly what you said, wasn't it the Titans that said that they had made their decision up 3 to 4 weeks before the draft on Ward?
Yeah, probably about 3 weeks. So I get your point there. I think in general it leads to too much of that. And had they been on a different clock, I'm not saying they weren't going to take Ward under any circumstances, but I think there are situations where it prompts teams to talk themselves into and out of players and decisions. It's too long.
Thank you for the call, Bob. I'm here for the bad decisions. We also have Jared. Is this Jared from Costa Rica? Do we have Jared Haight calling us from the beach? Jared, what's going on?
No, this is Jared Spring Hill. I wish I was in Costa Rica. However, I do like how you laid out the kind of the surrounding pieces to the quarterbacks. I feel like that adds just so much needed perspective. And I feel like supports my point to where it seems like they went all in on drafting Cam Ward. They went the Chiefs way of getting a quarterback and then we'll figure out the rest, where I felt like if they would have taken the trade, they could have surrounded the next person better with better pieces, just because, again, this is perspective. He's not walking into a great environment. And so having said all that, what kind of offense do you anticipate the Titans being able to finagle with the roster that they have right now? I'm assuming it's not going to change. So, what kind of offense do you expect that Callahan will be able to draft up in and around Cam Ward? Guys, this is great radio, and I do just want to say thanks. And it's PK, it's nice to hear you back on the radio waves in the afternoon. It takes me back about 10 years. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
I'll hang up and listen, brother. Have a good one.
Thanks,
I was never an afternoon guy. I was a midday guy. Fought like hell for the afternoon. David, do you remember how that went?
You guys are, 10 to 2, right?
We were all, what time? We had every time slot in the afternoon, but nothing that ever went beyond 2.
No, because
certain people were just installed despite ratings. Look, Joe Burrow and Josh Allen did not have great supporting casts when they came in. I'm not suggesting Cam Ward's going to be one of those guys. I don't think he will be. But if you see the quarterback you like, you can't say, well, we can't take him because we have an insufficient offensive line or insufficient receivers or insufficient defense. You take them when you can take them.
Yeah. Ideally,
and you worry about the other stuff when you worry about it.
Yeah. Ideally, you have a better infrastructure. Also, if you're picking first, you probably don't.
Right.
So if you love the quarterback, you look.
So the offense is going to be quick game and run game and, some shots and some creativity from Cam and some concepts from Miami. Tehran was asking about that last week. They need to do some of the things that Miami did if those things are different than what Brian Callahan was doing.
Your piece to me, and this is a little bit of a sunshiny view, but again, the offensive line, it's a whole. Dan Moore is, to me, is
a huge linchpin to this whole
gigantic story for this team. Obviously, Cam Ward is what we're going to be talking about, but if that guy's okay, fine, solid, then again, I like the backs. They added a nice rookie, I think, to the tight end room. They at least have they've got enough bodies in the receiver room that you would think you'd be able to come up with something. I mean, it's compare it to some of these other situations other than that O-line for Vince Young.
You like the backs. You like the backs. Let's talk about Spears. How do you like Spears?
Well,
I feel like they're down.
Pollard.
Yeah, I feel like they're down on Spears. I feel like Spears got banged up too much last year. Some of that's out of your control. I feel like when they say we need a big between the tackles runner, that's saying Pollard / Spears can't do that enough. They want to reduce the wear and tear on Pollard, whose numbers suffered later in the season. I think they think because he wore down, and I think Spears is very much not their guy. I think he's at his best catching balls in space. It's hard to, arrange for that as much as you would like. Pollard's also not bad at that. I think he could be kind of lost in the mix a little bit. I've gotten questions, like he's on some boards in terms of like fantasy upside, Tajay Spears, or I did Athlon this year, and they said, how much will Tajay Spears cut into Tony Pollard's carries? I was like, really? This is one of the 3 big fantasy questions? Not a lot of fantasy questions here.
No, I mean, PPR, if he settles into that, third down role, maybe.
In a 16-team league, you're looking at him. In a 10-team league, he shouldn't be drafted.
Yeah. And I like Khalil Mullings a lot. I really do. He played like 1 year running back, and I really like him as a runner. So I like that pick. Not as much as, Scattaboo, who's coming in with that right attitude with the New York Giants. But I do like the pick. I think that he has a chance to carve out some kind of a role. Clearly like you said, they wanted some beef at that position that they didn't have last year.
Yeah. And, we had questions about Spears when he came out with that knee. The knee hasn't been a problem, but he's had some other things. I think Tajay Spears' arrow is level at best.
Yeah. So the arrow of let me transition to most expensive wide receiver rooms, which was shared to us.
How is this possible?
I don't know. I didn't know this, but this is Warren Sharp. This is Warren Sharp Football. Texter shared it with it. They're third. They have the third most expensive receiver room in the NFL at $45.5 million this year. Tops is 55. Of course, obviously the Cincinnati Bengals. Like no one would be surprised to hear that. But yeah, I'm stunned to see this list. Tampa Bay second, 47.9. Titans right there at 45.5. Then the Dolphins at 43.3. So first of all, I need it. Like I said during the break. Okay, so Treylon Burks does have a first-round deal. Gives you throw a few million into it.
Treylon Burks' cap value this year is 4.57.
Yeah, which is not huge. But I'm just saying, at least that's someone.
This
who
is all
adds
Ridley.
into.
Ridley's. I'm looking at just straight cap values from a secret resource that I have. All right, 28 for Ridley, 4.6 for Burks.
So now you get
4 for Lockett.
Okay, so now you're up in the high 30s.
1.6 for Jefferson, 1 for Dow, 1 for Prochet, 1 for Kinsey, 1 for Jackson.
Okay, well,
everybody else is under 1.
You've gotten into the 40s. I mean, you just talked it through, and you've gotten into the 40s.
And that's third.
That's wild. I mean,
how could those guys add up to just Higgins and Chase? They've given well-structured contracts to Higgins and Chase is all it means.
Well, I mean, again, Higgins and Chase, 55. So there's still 10 more just with those 2 guys. But, yeah, there's obviously contract structuring. You look at some of the teams on this list.
The cap isn't real. The cap isn't real. Why are you guys even talking about this?
Have you has David Reed had any, like, cap fatigue yet? How about right tackle? We don't really have the right tackle story much, right? Like, that's –
let me tell you, everyone sit down, close your eyes, and take a deep breath.
You know what?
I want to tell you something I've never shared before about a deep conversation I had with Floyd Reese, the infallible general manager.
Don't start ripping Floyd. See, sometimes you use this as a vehicle to rip Floyd. We calm down over there. But I do like how you clearly hate listening to Jared a lot.
Dude, I mean, all you have to do is turn on the radio to hear the right tackle story.
We are going to get to what you saw this weekend, PK. But Robert in Spring Hill is asking, should the Titans make a run? Speaking of Bengals, at Trey Hendrickson.
Look, I just don't believe that they can afford to give up picks. They want picks, and Trey Hendrickson.
They could have had some picks. I'm just saying,
could be their number 1. They still dealt down from number 2 to get a second and a third and increase, those top 100 picks. Hendrickson could be their number 1 pass rusher very easily, but you're giving up premier picks and then the premier salary. And then when your team's ready,
and then you're winning 7 games, maybe.
Yeah. And when your team's ready, he's about to start to nosedive and the timing is off. It just doesn't really make that much sense. But I understand how it's frustrating to see him out there and know that your team does not have a pass rush, and the two don't seem to make sense.
Yeah, it's
coexisting.
Right. It's a positional fit, but it's not the timing, I agree, is all wrong. Speaking of timing, we're going to talk about your time this weekend over at St. Thomas Sports Park. Coming up on Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 through the game. Welcome back in, Stillman and Company. Joe Rexrode, Paul Kaharski, in for Jared today. David reproducing. Got Kevin on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHound.com. Says, refreshing to hear you two gents in the afternoon instead of that silly Stilly guy. Can one hope he loses his passport in Costa Rica, or is that mean? Kevin in Florida. That is kind of mean, Kevin. Keith says it's really good to hear Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon back together. That would be if Glennon were in here.
Listen,
you guys are. What are the Muppets? The Muppets in the balcony that Vrabel
you're the guy that named us. You're the guy that named us them. You should know their name. Waldorf and Stanley.
No, gosh dang it. Why do I always forget it?
Because you're getting old.
But remember when Vrabel said it that one day, and then I actually called up the Muppets on my computer and was like, "Hey, like this." And
listen,
we
the tweets and the texts and everything are flooding in. You can slow down. We know this is superior to Jared Stillman in every way, that you wish it could be a daily thing. Management, for some reason, disagrees, and that's their prerogative. They hold the purse strings and they schedule the shows. But for today, you can, enjoy yourself.
Statler and Waldorf, by the way.
Yeah.
PK trying to
later you go back to misery.
Piss off multiple radio front offices today.
Later you go back to misery.
Well, were you in misery? I keep trying to do transitions. They don't really
just
work.
Force it.
Yeah, I know. How about your misery, Paul? Were you miserable? I mean, really, like, be honest. Rookie camp. Like, of all the things that you do in this job.
It's one of my least favorite days of the year.
Oh, God. Because it's not even like.
I mean, there's no defense.
Yeah,
there's no defense.
There's no.
And you send out a video of the number
all.
one pick in the draft throwing a pass, or in this case, it's Restrepo. Oh, my God, look at Restrepo. I mean, he's catching a ball against no defender. He's turning upfield. They're not running full speed. And people are saying, I see no problem with the speed. They're not running full speed. Oh, it looks fine to me, speed-wise, PK. I don't know what you're talking about.
They did run full speed at times, though, right? In some way?
Not really.
No? Okay.
And I'm talking to people with the team about his status. Semi-confirming what I'm saying. But no, he's number one receiver. I think I see him pushing Ridley. Fans.
Okay, so what is from what you could gather, not just Restrepo, but overall, what were you, if you have to have takeaways, did you write anything off this?
Yeah, I wrote about Cam.
Yeah.
You have to write about Cam, right?
Yes. Well,
I thought his release, look, he's smaller than you think. They list him at 6'2". He's 6'1.5". The last two quarterbacks have been 6'4". So you're used to seeing Will Levis, who's 6'4", and Ryan Tannehill, who's 6'4". He's significantly shorter than that.
And Mariota was 6'4", right?
Yeah, and he looks significantly shorter than that. And this is without an offensive line in front of him or defensive line with the offensive line. And so I think it may be striking the first few times you see him. If you're going to be honest about him and not make him into Superman, he's going to look shorter behind there. Now, I didn't really notice the sidearm, which I thought was going to be a thing for me, for two reasons, I concluded. One, the release is so fast that I couldn't really freeze frame the arm in my head to see where the ball was coming from. I was trying to take some pictures of that. And only when I saw the fine work of George Walker IV did I really see, where the ball was coming from, because that's down so quickly. It also, you can tell there's something awkward about it, the release, which is super quick, but it's hard to kind of pinpoint. I think the arm is kind of tight to the body before it sidearms, But also, I think the quick release is amazing. And I thought maybe the most interesting thing was Alec Iomanor talking about how quick the ball was on him. And he said, if you're not ready for it, you're screwed, he basically said. If you're not on time, that's your tough luck, because he's going to be on time. You got to like hearing that, right? That was maybe the most meaningful thing that came out of it. But I do think, I'm very interested in seeing how things change for everyone when there are defenders in range. And at OTAs, starting in phase 3, which is still a week and a half away, when there can be 9-on-7, 7-on-7, 11-on-11, how things change. Ward said all the right things, did all the right things. I thought he delivering the ball on time was terrific. But again, no defenders. So the things that would throw you off time don't exist.
Yeah, I thought Gentry Estes had an interesting comment in the Tennessean about basically and Ward. He can get a little snippy, which I'm here for, but he's not afraid to just be like, basically dismissive of some questions, right? And basically the idea of like, this guy doesn't seem like he's into bull crap is the term that Gentry used. But what do you think of like just how he's handled the media stuff, and even, what about like interactions out there and things like that?
I think he's pretty cool with us. He's engaged. That's what you want, right? Somebody to be engaged. He's not disinterested. And even those questions that he's like pshaw on, he's giving you an answer as to why he's pshawing it,
right?
Which is
he's still elaborating.
What you want. Like I carefully couched, I thought, a question about the sidearm because I wanted to know how he developed that, and I wanted to know. Callahan told me why it was an issue for them. I wanted to know if it was an issue for anybody else he talked to. Did anybody have any qualms about it? And he said no. So, and I think I kind of expected that answer because everybody knows a guy coming out, his arm slot is probably what his arm slot is. People can't fix something like that, even if they want to. At this stage,
yeah.
Right? If you don't like that, then you steer clear of
whatever your jump shot motion is.
Unless you want to change it.
If you're hitting them, you're not changing. You're not changing it. Not significantly. Again, Josh Allen is the weird example of someone who somehow has changes accuracy. But
the other thing I'll say, I thought Femi Aladejo.
I was just going to ask you about him.
Aladejo was. I mean, he's big, and he's big, but he's a different kind of edge than Harold Landry for sure. He's beefy. Jim Wyatt had a great video of him just beating up a pole-like tackling dummy. Not a thick tackling dummy, but just picked it up, threw it aside, ran to a bag. Strong and muscled and thick. Now, I mean, to me, that's on the defensive side, outside of is Snead going to be there or not between the felony charge and the injury stuff. Can Femi complete this conversion and be a pass rushing presence after just 10 games at edge? I talked about, I don't have to think for everybody else as an inside linebacker anymore. I just think for me. He's an intriguing guy. He's an interesting guy. He's a bubbly guy. It'll be fun talking to him about it, but the production is the key there. And that's the other, I'll go back to Restrepo. Just these fans kind of contradicting themselves. And it's not the Titans so much contradicting themselves. But if the fans bought into the draft was all about upside more so than production, right?
Yeah,
with a lot of these guys.
Sure.
Traits, and we're going to develop these guys.
And this is
and then you say, why Restrepo? Why is Restrepo going to be? Oh, look at the production. Never mind, he's got super thick legs and he doesn't run well. He produced like crazy. Counter to the entire draft class.
He does look big. He looks big out there on the videos. Kind of
his legs
beefy
are overly thick for a receiver. I'll say this. I didn't have this conversation with you. I've had it with several people. If you took him, Adam Humphries, Kyle Phillips, and watch them do short yardage stuff, there's no chance you wouldn't take him third.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. Kyle Phillips obviously didn't work out, and he was very slight. All those things, all the mistakes, punt return. He would destroy people in practice. Destroy them.
Unbelievable short yardage. Inside 10 yards?
No, the short space quickness. And Humphries too. And that's, to me, that's my big question. Is like, okay, fine, the 40 times bad. But does he have those feet? Because if he has those feet, I don't give a crap. He's not running 40 yards. He's running 6 yards and catching a pass. And then whatever happens after that. But that's the whole point. Can you blow up somebody trying to play man coverage in the slot whenever you need to?
It's good against zone. I mean, I'm looking forward to watching him go against people, but I watched his highlight, like 8 minutes of highlights, and I didn't go, whoa, look at what he's doing with his feet.
I mean, I thought
he's getting away from people.
Yeah. Obviously, I watched a fair amount of Miami football last year. He's a good player. Yeah. But that doesn't always lend itself. But to answer your question on production and traits, but because when you're a fan of a team right after the draft, whatever thing is the good thing is the thing that you want to believe in, right?
Yeah. But if you're a fan of a team that consistently fails at something, why do you continue to hook on to something that disappoints you over and over and over again?
To piss you off. All right, we come back. We got a few questions for PK on the Titans. By the way, we have Matt Hasselbeck coming on the top of the hour, and then PK versus Joe, 5:15. But we will come back with more questions. Get them in if you have any on the text line driven by Wilson County Hyundai. WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hold on. I need a minute. Welcome back in. Stillman and Company. Joe Rexo, Paul Kaharski, David Reed.
Coming up next segment, Matt Hasselbeck on Cam Ward, Will Levis, all tight. You saw Metallica and Pearl Jam back to back.
I know.
Last time Pearl Jam was in town is when COVID started in my house.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like 22?
That was the first time we went out. And Teresa got COVID 4 days later, and I got COVID 4 days after that.
Yeah.
It was not a
too
pleasant
bad.
time.
Great show by Pearl Jam.
Yeah, you saw me from the heavens down on the floor.
Yes, that's right. You got floor seats. Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Floor stand.
Floor, yeah, not floor seats, floor spaces, floor spots.
You were in the pit?
I was in the pit.
For how long
Oh,
before you
shit.
had to
The whole
sit
show.
down? The whole show?
Yeah.
You didn't do anything the next
I
day,
didn't.
did you?
I didn't.
You didn't get
I
out
mean,
of bed the next day.
I loved what I knew, but I did not love what I did not know.
There's no way your old man knees stood for 3 hours and you functioned the next day.
I was just fine.
You slam into anybody?
No.
There isn't a lot of slam dance anymore. I notice it. Like
But
the bands that I loved when I was young. You know,
David
They just stand around now.
David was a witness to my day after Foo Fighters recovery, which was not good. It was too harshky.
Oh God! Ooh, very nice. Saw them at the festival. Come on.
Bonnaroo.
Thank you.
I'm not helping you.
That was awesome.
You think I'm going to help you
me,
when you're
old man.
stuck for a word?
All
That
right.
would be a key feature of our show, is that when one of us was stuck for a word, there would be no assistance whatsoever.
Yeah,
Not
just
like helping your wife with the word.
a lot of stammering.
Come on. Yeah. Blue.
I should have said Woodstock. Lilith Fair.
Yeah, Foo Fighters.
Lilith Fair.
Foo Fighters just getting started during Woodstock, man.
Foo Fighters at Lilith Fair.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, I got some questions on the text line, driven by WilsonCounty.com. One person said, why can't we do 7-on-7s? I saw a clip from Cleveland, and Shador was doing 7-on-7s.
You can do 7-on-7s in phase 3. Shador, I don't think, was doing 7-on-7s at phase 2 of OTAs.
Maybe they're in a different phase. Is that possible?
Or maybe they could be doing them at OTAs right now. They couldn't do them at minicamp, at rookie minicamp.
PK, have you gotten to interact with or see much of Fassel? Anything stand out already? Any coach-related things that you're noticing?
I did not even think to look for him at this minicamp, which would have been the only coaching situation we would have had access to so far. OTAs, which one a week will be open starting not next week, but the week after. One a week, and then a 3-day minicamp. So we will look for him there, and hopefully he'll be made available at some point in there. I think the coordinators all have to talk at least one time during that segment, and that would include him.
Got a texter asking, what team do we have scheduled practices with? They haven't figured that out yet. Or do they have one of them figured out?
They are going to go on the road with two teams. I think I know who they are, but I think I know who they are because I've had conversations. And not on the record, so I can't say.
Just give us hints, man.
One of them not too far away.
Okay, so the Bengals or the Falcons or the Colts. It won't be the Colts.
It's not the Colts.
Thank you. All right, so we got it. It's down to 2. It's down to 2. By the way, speaking of the Falcons, real quick, just a quick aside. I feel I'm seeing some stuff on all these schedule leaks that like they have a ton of national games.
The Colts?
No, the Falcons.
Oh, the Falcons.
That seemed a little bit strange to you?
Yes.
I mean, Penix is,
I have no interest in seeing the Falcons on any kind of regular basis.
Yeah, I like their draft. I mean, they get a couple edge guys who could be good. They could be a decent team, but yeah, I don't know. That's a weird one, right?
Yes. If they're on national TV more than 3 times, like 3 times, 2.5 would have been my over/under, and I would have taken 2.
Yeah, someone tweeted, again, this could be your guy Jordan Schultz. Maybe it's not true. I don't know. But that they have 4, that they already have 4 confirmed.
Too many.
Now that they may also be, are they doing one of the Europe games, overseas games? That may be.
Maybe.
So that's,
I'm not counting 9 a.m. Central Time as prime time. Prime time is night. 9 a.m. doesn't do anything for me. I'm not going to be awake I'm not setting an alarm, getting up and watching 9 a.m. It's nice background while I'm getting dressed.
Right, but it's national. So it's the only broadcast. It's not regionalized at all. So that's
fine. But do we call it prime time?
Yeah.
Exclusive window?
Yeah, national. You just call it a national game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that the Falcons have.
If one of them's there, that's fine. But still, even 3 would be a lot for the Falcons.
Dylan says, how does Joe hate Bush but like Foo Fighters? Foo Fighters suck. Dylan, wait, what? Are you kidding me?
Foo Fighters are good.
You're going to make me lose my mind
But
on the
Bush
air?
is also good.
Do
They're
you
not
think-
as good as Foo Fighters.
My
And Foo
God.
Fighters is too harsh for me. But I think you severely underrate Bush. The best of Bush is very good.
Yeah, not really. But my God, they're not. I mean, they're not as bad as Creed, but my God, Foo Fighters are a million times better. Yes, Dylan, I know that Dave Grohl has like 3 secret families, but you know, a lot of these guys have issues. It's about the music, Paul. PK, what's the difference between this year's Titans and Washington minus the QBs? Yeah, I understand the idea of the question. And no one had Washington a year ago saying, wow, Jaden Daniels has himself a heck of a vehicle to drive next year. But
I'll give you one.
Can look at that
I'll give
roster,
you one.
It's different.
Terry McLaurin.
Right.
It's a supremely gifted wide receiver who is a significant notch better than Calvin Ridley.
Well, there's some talent on defense that they had last year too. They had a lot of like 1-year signings that worked out.
Yeah. So I mean, their 1-year signings, all worked out. Are you betting on the Tennessee Titans to have a bunch of 1-year signings who all work out? I'm not.
But Jaden Daniels did elevate still.
Absolutely.
That crew. And
so if Cam Ward plays like Jaden Daniels played last year, then the difference may not be much. But the consensus is, and the consensus is often wrong, that he's not Jaden Daniels.
Other than edge on that defense, what's to you the biggest concern?
Other than edge?
Right.
Edge. No, I have, they're one turned ankle at cornerback away. They claim this guy from Dallas. Did they claim him or sign him? They signed him.
And they just claimed off waivers a linebacker who,
yeah,
I could find the name.
Orgy, I think is. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but his name is spelled Orgi, I believe.
That's not the same one I'm talking about.
Well, they claimed another linebacker. They've claimed 2 linebackers in 2 days, perhaps.
It's Anthony Orji, who, by the way, is from Vanderbilt.
Yeah. So, it depends largely on injury. Inside linebackers, the other concern. Who's playing next to Cody Barton? There are a lot of guys who none of them you can count on. Somebody has to emerge. Is it going to be James Williams? He's a 7th-round pick who's a converted safety. Do you have a lot of faith in that? I don't. Cedric Gray needs to be the guy that emerges as a 4th-round pick out of North Carolina last year, who got off to a slow start because he was hurt early. If he doesn't emerge, then you're throwing a dart at a bunch of guys who really don't have much of a resume.
Gray's a huge storyline because I'm with you. I think James Williams is going to be a special teams guy, and you can throw him in there, but
then you've got some waiver claims and some other guys, and it's just no certainty.
I mean, it seemed like Cedric Gray, didn't he have multiple things last year health-wise too?
Yeah.
He had something that held him back later in the season.
Yeah, something early during camp that took him a while, and then once he was back, he did something else. He didn't get off to a great start on special teams either, though he recovered to play reasonably well down the stretch.
Texter points out, the Commanders, I guess their O-line was ranked 8th. I don't know if what is that, PFF, but their offensive line played well. Their offensive line exceeded expectations. Point being here, Titans fans hoping the Titans finish top 20, massive difference. So, and that's the thing. I mean, I just, the Bill Callahan effect, Dan Moore is a good signing, J.C. Latham,
good transition.
Becoming,
Cushenberry he's back. Dude. And playing well. Achilles guys probably do better in tight quarters than they do if they're skill position guys coming off of that. But you need to see him back and healthy. Otherwise, you're playing Mustafa or Levin or Hymason. I don't have his name off the top of my head. Looks like Jameson, but it's not. They could be playing a backup center at least early. That would be a bad case scenario.
Not ideal. All right, we come back. We will talk to Matt Hasselbeck, talk some Titans and NFL with him here on Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Standing Emily, third hour here, presented by Southern Bank of Tennessee, your bank for small business. Joe Rexer, Paul Kaharski in today for Jared Stillman, Dave reproducing. Very happy to welcome in our next guest, former Titans, former NFL quarterback, and current OC at Ensworth, Matt Hasselbeck. Matt, thanks for being with us. Very much appreciate it. I got to, before we get into Titans and NFL stuff, I got to ask, what is the dynamic? OC, Tim, head coach. How has that gone? How's that going for you guys?
Yeah, well, it's gone pretty well. But my mom threatened us. She said, if you boys fight, then I'm coming down there. I'm going to grab you by the ear on the sideline. So we went preemptive strike. I'm up in the booth, up in the box, and my brother Tim, he's the head coach. He's on the sideline. So we can't get in any public fights. But we're in spring ball right now. We've got 6 practices. They let you take 7. We're just doing 6 because most of our guys play other sports in the spring. And yeah, it's good. We got our last one tonight. We've been working hard. We've got an awesome group of kids, great coaches, and we're excited for another big year.
No, your dad passed away recently and wanted to pass along our collective condolences. No, he was highly, highly respected by all his friends and in the football community. So hope everyone's doing well after that.
Yeah, thank you. We were shocked. He died suddenly at a heart attack, and it was really crushing. He was in great shape, minus knee replacement knees from football. But he was coaching our tight ends last year, and so we're going to have some plays in that he was always begging us to run last year. So big tight end offense from our team this year, and I let those guys know that yesterday.
That will be cool. Nice tribute. Let's shift to what the Titans have going on. What are your impressions of Cam Ward? How much have you seen him play? And what do you think about him as a prospect here where the Titans haven't had very good luck with highly drafted quarterbacks?
Yeah, well, as a prospect, obviously, I think he was like the unanimous pick for number 1 overall. Like, I think there was no one that was even wondering, like, are they gonna, is he gonna be the first pick or not? So he's got the it factor, he's got the potential. You just got to go do it. So many times guys that are taking number 1 or number 2, they've got the potential and they don't get it done. A lot of times it's about fit. It's about timing. It's not the greatest of situations, if I'm being real, coming into the Tennessee Titans. It's just there's other teams that are set up for more success. You're on the moving walkway, so to speak. I think it's a little bit of an uphill battle here in Nashville, but that's not to say that one guy can't turn it around. And if you get the right play caller with the right quarterback, you can strike lightning, I guess. And, I think that's kind of the vision here. When Brian Callahan got hired, they thought, hey, listen, he could run that Joe Burrow, Cincinnati Bengals offense. We just got to get him with the right people. And obviously the quarterback is the one that they're trying to get right.
Yeah, Matt, we've talked some today about, speaking of lightning striking, Washington last year, of course. At this time a year ago, I didn't hear anybody saying, oh, yeah, the Commanders, they've really built around Jaden Daniels beautifully. Like, that looks like that's going to be a great situation for the rookie. And, of course, we saw what happened with them. In your mind, obviously some of the signings turned out well for them. They had some talent. But how much of that situation do you look at and say that was just straight up Jaden Daniels elevating an average roster?
Yeah, I think that was a lot of it, but I think it was more than just that. It was more than just that. I mean, no one was counting on them, but I would say this: there were a lot of people last year, myself included, that said, "Do not pick Caleb Williams number 1. He is not the first overall pick." And there was some disagreement. My brother really wanted Drake May to be the first pick. There were other people that like Jaden Daniels. It was like some discussion there. I don't think that's the case this year. I feel like Cam Ward is clearly the guy that everyone said this is the number 1 pick. So that's one thing. I think the other thing is Dan Quinn did an amazing job with that defense. He got a veteran leader in Bobby Wagner that was kind of kicked to the curb in Seattle, then kicked to the curb again with the Rams. And he came in and had a Pro Bowl type year. And then offensively, Cliff Kingsbury reinvented himself, and he was ready the second time around. And that offense just clicked perfectly with Jaden Daniels. And then he stayed, for the most part, healthy. But I think everyone was definitely surprised by the success of the team. but I don't know that they should have been surprised that Dan Quinn had success and that Cliff Kingsbury plus Jaden Daniels had success. And I would expect that team to build on it. But to think that the Titans can be the Commanders next year, I think that's asking a lot. I think that might be a bridge too far in year one.
Absolutely, everybody expects him to start out of the gate, and number one picks in the league generally start out of the gate. Can you see any circumstances where they would hit the brakes on him and take the flack that comes with not having your guy be introduced on opening day?
Yeah, I wouldn't give it to him. That's one thing I've learned. I played 18 years in the NFL, and there's, everyone does it different. Like you can do this, you can do that, but there's some things that are non-negotiables. And when you hand somebody something and it's not earned, the locker room does not respect that. Like I get it, fine, you're a high-round pick, fine, but you better earn your spot. And my rookie year with the Green Bay Packers, they were coming off of 2 consecutive Super Bowls. Mike Holmgren's the head coach. He came in day one. He goes, I don't care where you were drafted. I don't care how much money you make. The best players are going to play. That's like the stuff is over. The best players are going to play. It's going to be merit-based. Now, he said, granted, I think Reggie White's probably going to be our starting defensive end. I think Brent Favre's probably going to be our starting quarterback. But I think you just respect that. And that's what I loved about a locker room. I love that about a locker room. And I think you do a disservice to a young player, especially a young quarterback, when you just kind of like, hey, you're the starter. Hey, you're the captain. Hey, you're the, you have to, because, everyone on Twitter says so because you were the first pick. Like, I just make him go earn it. I feel strongly about that. And Donovan McNabb did that. Patrick Mahomes did that. Tom Brady did that. There's a lot of guys who didn't start week one, and some of them didn't even start year one. And I don't expect that for Cam, but week one, you got to prove to me that you know what you're doing.
Former Titans quarterback Matt Hasselbeck, Ensworth offensive coordinator, and handsome bald man Hall of Famer Matt Hasselbeck, our guest. How complicated does that get, Matt, if he doesn't quite earn it, but the alternatives don't exactly earn it either? The Titans don't have a Matt Hasselbeck to Jake Locker here. And so maybe he's not quite ready, but Will Levis isn't the greatest decision maker. Brandon Allen doesn't have a great resume. Tim Boyle, I don't really understand why he's here.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, I don't think the league has given up on Will Levis yet. Like, I certainly wouldn't give up on him. Like, you saw what happened with Bryce Young. He might still have a long career in the NFL. I think he tried too hard last year. I think he wanted it too bad. If he could just eliminate 5 plays a game, I think he would probably still be the starting quarterback. But like that you could say the same thing about a golfer on the PGA Tour. If he just made 5 of those putts, he'd be Tiger Woods. So I think that's just like how competitive, how rare air it is. But no, like even going back to when Andy Reid was in Philly, he started Doug Peterson as basically the piñata while Donovan McNabb was on the bench getting ready to play. Andy Reid did a similar thing with Alex Smith when Patrick Mahomes was drafted, and Alex Smith rose to the occasion. I think he was the starter for the AFC in the Pro Bowl that year. He wasn't like the 5th alternate that snuck into the Pro Bowl. He was the starter in the Pro Bowl. He had that kind of a year. So maybe that's what a guy like Will Levis needs to show that he can reach his potential. And if that were the case, then that's not a terrible thing. But I believe Cam Ward will have every opportunity to win the job. I think he probably will win the job, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. This offense is going to be very different terminology-wise from what he's coming from. And so, we'll see. There's a lot of time between now and September, but he'll get obviously first crack at it.
If he does win the job, are you wary of Levis staying at all? There are a lot of people in the fandom here who feel like he's a hot potato and he'll be somehow a problem with his alpha personality, which you want in a quarterback. He was a starter. Maybe it's an uncomfortable situation. I think he's the second best quarterback, and unless you're getting a great return, you should keep him. But what do you think about the potential personality stuff there? If in fact it's very clearly Cam Ward's team as things wrap up in camp or even earlier than that.
Listen, I see a lot of myself in Will Levis. I mean, my teammates at the end of my career called me Matty Nice because I was like really nice, like a nice guy. I wasn't always that way. Like my first year as starter in Seattle, I was competing with Trent Dilfer, and I could not stand that dude. Like I did not like him, and we were teammates, and our wives were friends, and our kids were friends, and I was like rooting against him, like I didn't want him to do well. Like, and it was a kind of like the situation that you're saying. And what had to happen though is I had to mature. I had to become a better teammate. I had to humble myself. I had to take, a step back to take 2 steps forward. And basically just what I ended up having to do is, hey, get your mind right to be ready if and when Trent Dilfer ever gets hurt, because he became the starter and I became the backup. And I think that's the situation for Will and the situation that he's in. He's probably got to like learn to be the best teammate ever, learn to maybe humble himself, definitely be ready to play the next time around. He likely will get another chance to show what he can do, probably for a different team now. But no, that competitive, I don't know what you call it, friction. Steve Young and Joe Montana would talk about it all the time. It's a little bit like fire, but you can also cook with fire. You can also burn your house down with fire. So, but no, I think there's something that you can use that's positive there.
Talking to Matt Hasselbeck. Matt, last thing for you. You mentioned the importance of the play caller quarterback partnership. Things didn't go well last year, any front really for the Titans. But from what you know, Brian Callahan, this scheme, first of all, what do you think of him going into year 2 as a play caller, as a play calling head coach? And also, do you think that scheme fits Cam Ward's skill set well?
I think the scheme does fit, definitely. I can really go. Brian Callahan never coached me. I do know him, but in my conversations with a guy like Joe Burrow, what he would say is like he loved Brian Callahan. He loved Dan Pitcher, the kind of like the triangle that they had there with like sort of quarterback coach, play caller, offensive coordinator, and then he had Zach Taylor also. So, and I think the word that Joe Burrow used at the time was he's a very unselfish coach. Like he's not trying to prove how smart he is. He's not the kind of guy that like needs credit. And so like I just think like in my career, I cannot overstate how important the relationship was from play caller to quarterback. And then once I was on the field, the relationship from quarterback to center. Like those 2 relationships have so much to do with your success as a quarterback, never mind a young quarterback. So, I think that having Brian Callahan, I would say that's a great thing for a young quarterback. And I know that Joe Burrow would say the same thing.
Matt Hasselbeck, thanks so much for your time, Matt.
Great catching up.
Yeah, great stuff. And good luck in that last practice of the spring.
Oh, I will. SPF 50 today, guys, if you were wondering.
Yeah,
that's right.
Also, you got to get that big hat on.
Well, maybe next week. I'm going fresh cut today, fresh shave.
Brave man. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. Guys. Matt Hasselbeck. And when we come back on Stillman and Company, it is PK versus Joe. 102.5, 106.3 The Game. And it is that time of week, although it's a little bit later than normal time of week. And it is time for Jared versus Joe, except it's not Jared versus Joe. It's PK versus Joe. And, Caroline Fenton today actually texted and was like, hey, are we doing Jared versus Joe? And I was like, well, actually, Stilly's in Costa Rica. And she's like, well, at least some of us are working. But we've called in out of the bullpen one Adam Vingan to moderate. He's been coming up with some questions to get PK and me arguing with each other. Adam Vingan, the floor is yours.
I ran into Caroline Fenton today. So It's funny how that works.
Wow. Where were you guys?
I was having brunch with my wife because I took your shift this morning, so I was done at 9 o'clock.
How'd that go, by the way?
I think it went well.
I heard some of it. I didn't love the footwear conversation, but otherwise not bad.
Yeah, PK's been ripping your flip-flop conversation. Yeah, I don't agree with you.
I consider it a badge of honor to be ripped by Paul Kaharski.
There you go.
Don't they all?
All right, ask away, my friend.
All right, let me get my questions up here. We'll start with Joe Rexroad. And forgive me here, as per usual, I'm getting a little nerdy. So the news of the day about Derrick Henry re-signing with the Baltimore Ravens. Derrick Henry is 6,932 rushing yards behind Emmitt Smith on the all-time leaderboard. Henry is averaging 1,428 yards per 17 games in his career, meaning he would have to maintain that pace for at least 5 more seasons to break the record. Joe Rexroad, will he do it?
No, he won't. But I do appreciate you bringing up. I mean, I haven't even thought about that. I really have never thought about that with Derrick Henry. And, honestly, you bring it up. No, I don't think he'll even get that close. But look, he's already completely defied expectations, right? I mean, do we know for sure that he's not like Frank Gore in terms of just absurd longevity? I mean, I think even if that's the case, it's going to be hard for him to get the opportunities to have a shot at that. And that's still so many years. But now I need to look at the all-time rushing list and wonder where he could end up. Could he end up in the top 10 in there, somewhere in that range? I mean, that alone is pretty amazing. So I think it's a clear no, but I like it's a good exercise in nerdiness by you, as usual, Vingan.
But Paul, before you answer the question, Tony Dorsett is 10th on the list at 12,739.
So what's the difference?
What's
You got to
the
do the math.
difference
Come on,
there?
do the
Yeah.
math. Do the math.
We don't.
Roughly 1,300 yards.
Okay, so I was obviously way off. He
could get that in 2 seasons. So he could be top 10
in 1 season
all time, for sure. But no, he's got no chance at getting to Emmitt Smith. People don't like to hear it, but Derrick Henry will hit a wall at some point, and the fall off will be incredibly dramatic and hard to watch. It's just what happens to running backs at some point. It won't do anything to minimize his greatness, and it won't do anything to minimize his singularity of his generation, where there's really nobody that approaches him in terms of production combined with durability. Outside of those 8 games that he missed with the Liz Frank injury, he's been a supreme being in the league and in the position. And I think, he's also had kind of an important hallmark with that stiff arm. It's kind of a defining characteristic and visual element to his game that will be talked about in his Hall of Fame presentation, I guarantee.
But by the way, real fast, he is absolutely a better running back than Emmitt Smith. But of course, there's about 40 people who can say that. All right, what's next, Vingan?
Well, let me ask you this follow-up. So Adrian Peterson is 5th. Derrick Henry is 3,495 yards behind Adrian Peterson. Could he challenge Peterson for 5th all the time?
Yeah, look, I think 3,000 yards. I mean, look, is he going to have 2 more seasons like last year? Probably not. Is he going to match last year, this year? Probably not. But like a really good season, 1,500 yards range this year, and then maybe, you have a couple more where you cobble together another 15. Yeah, I could absolutely see that.
I mean, that's 2,067 yards. It's not inconceivable he could do it in one tremendous season. So, certainly he can do it in 2 seasons.
Well, no, he says, I'm sorry. Did you say it was what, 3,000 yards away?
Roughly 3,500 yards behind Adrian Peterson for fifth.
Oh, sorry. Well, so that's, I don't know what math I just did.
I don't either.
I botched that.
You
Score
lose.
me down.
You just lost. Good job. All right, what's next, Bingen?
All right, Paul, as I understand it, you are a huge New York Knicks fan, and I, like you, swallow my H's. So you are a huge New York Knicks fan, as I understand it. And the Knicks are on the verge of their first trip to the conference finals in 25 years. Where do you rank the Knicks among the remaining NBA playoff teams in terms of their championship potential?
Well, you don't understand it correctly. I was a huge New York Knicks fan back.
Well, tell that to Joe, who told me you were a huge Knicks fan.
I just like to say the word huge.
Lying.
I like to type out the word huge.
I was into the Knicks very much when the NBA was a watchable product, when it became a regular feature that teams missed 30 3-pointers a game. And I'm using that number lightly based on what the Celtics have done in this series. I averted my eyes, as most intelligent people would do, because it's not fun to watch people heave up a ball from a mile away from the basket, creating mile-long rebounds to either run to layups or to take and miss threes from equal distance at the other end of the floor. I'm excited by what the Knicks are doing now because, A, I hate Boston, and I love watching Boston in any capacity struggle and find agony. And it's exciting to watch teams come back from double-digit deficits and win with defensive stops at the end. And so I'm very into what the Knicks are doing now, but I don't want to claim I'm a lifelong fan because I've unplugged for 20 years. I also appreciate them because they beat Joe's team, and Joe seems to still like the NBA for some reason. And so that the Pistons lost and now the Celtics are going to lose, I'm excited about that.
I can't. The NBA is fantastic. It's the best it's ever been. I can't.
I mean, that's just preposterous.
Well, it's the best talent and game, and the game is the best ever, like by far. I mean, do I love late '80s NBA better? Yes. I mean,
because it was superior. So you can't say the game's the best it's ever been.
Because I was a kid and the Bad Boys are my favorite team of all time. I mean, that's
and
what
they
it's
played
an emotional
a better game.
Paul, this is not the question you asked. I need you to go back and watch some of those games and point out. I'll point out so many guys who would be laughed at out of the damn gym if they tried to get on any NBA team right now.
I'm not saying it's
less
their
talented. Ass off at them.
I'm not saying it's more talented than.
Okay.
I'm saying it was a more of a game, a more entertaining game. And I didn't sit and watch a guy chuck up and miss 43s a night,
right?
Which is not entertaining.
You're seizing on the 43s a night. There's all kinds of different styles of play among these teams. They don't all do that. The Celtics do. They launch too much, and when they miss, they're hard to watch. But
I fed you a piece from the Athletic, from the Ringer,
piece.
Which was all about how the entire league is about corner threes. And most teams take a disproportionate amount of corner threes. I don't find repetitive action in any sport. If there's a football team that runs up the middle constantly, I say I'd rather watch a different team that does things more interestingly.
Right, but,
and in the NBA, I can't find it.
I mean, in the NBA, if you watch the Denver Nuggets, if you watch the Golden State Warriors, there are completely different styles and incredible players all over the league. They're playing zone now, which actually makes it more interesting too. Whatever. To stick to this point, no, I don't believe the Knicks are a real contender. I actually think
it's laughable.
Well, I did. Okay.
They've just beaten the number 1 or number 2 seed with monumental comebacks. I mean, how are they not a contender?
I understand.
They're not going to contend with Indiana?
Well, they will contend with Indiana.
Well, then they're in the finals, and guess what? The 2 teams in the finals are both contenders to win the finals.
So if you're going to the finals and you're absolutely going to get your ass kicked, which is what's going to happen if they get there, that means you're a contender.
If you're in the finals,
going to be in it.
If you're in the finals, guess what? You have a chance to win the finals.
Really?
Yes.
If you're in something, if you're in a game, so when Alabama plays Troy's in the game, so they have a chance to win the game.
Ladies and gentlemen, a news flash for Joe Rex Road. football is a 1-game championship and basketball is a best-of-7 series.
Right, but if there's a lopsided,
also Troy's not getting to the finals of anything. NBA teams, they're what?
You
30?
just said if a team's in a series against another team, they're a contender to win that series. They will not win. They will not come close.
If that's the championship series, absolutely both teams have a chance to win it. Everyone knows that.
But the Knicks don't because they're not good. Anybody from the West is going to kill either of these teams of the East. Period.
Ridiculous.
All right, we come back. We'll have more PK versus Joe. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 through the game. All right, welcome back in. Stillman and Company. It's PK versus Joe. I'm way less flustered than I usually am each week around this time, although PK's Knicks have no chance of winning it all, and I think that's what Bingen just asked.
Adam, may I make one final point here? I'm new to the game. I just want to make one final point on the previous discussion. Las Vegas will, in fact, offer, if the Knicks are in the finals, Las Vegas will, in fact, offer odds. Odds that will suggest that there is a chance for the Knicks to win the series.
And yet there won't be.
That will, in fact, confirm that Las Vegas is accepting money on a bet for the Knicks to win the finals, which confirms there's a chance for them to win the finals. So that point is made solidly and ends there. Next question, please.
Yeah, they accept a lot of frivolous money. All right, Bingen, what's next?
All right, Joe. The Xavier Restrepo hype train has left the station among Titans fans, or at least a certain section of Titans fans who are vocal on social media. How likely is Restrepo to make the Titans? And if he does, what is his ceiling as a receiver?
So I've already predicted that he will make the team as the sixth receiver. I don't think that he's going to have any kind of significant impact on the field this year. But
which is what you want from your sixth receiver, no impact.
Well, no, but there's plenty of six receivers who have no impact. No, yes, or no?
In this team's history, plenty of fourth receivers that have no impact.
Well, right, but I mean, they go through good teams. I mean, who the hell is the sixth receiver in Cincinnati? Who the hell is the sixth receiver in Minnesota, Philadelphia?
Good special teamer who can run.
Yeah, but so. For the most part, if you're the sixth receiver, if you have a rash of injuries, you need to be ready. I'm going to predict him to make the team. I think it comes down to how much does Van Jefferson have left? I understand that Bryce Oliver is someone people like a lot. I think it's like and then with Burks, I've kind of discounted him. I think PK thinks he's like their number 3 receiver, but so the hype train is out of hand. I think some of the anger about them signing him at a certain show that we are guesting right now is a little bit out of hand too. But I think he squeaks onto the roster, and I don't know that we'll ever see anything significant from him in this league.
You asked for a percentage, correct, Adam?
I asked how likely he is to make the team. You can use a percentage if you'd like.
I'll answer the question as it was asked. 28%.
Ooh.
Chance that he makes the roster. People are way overblowing it. He was incredibly productive at Miami, which is great. This is not the ACC, and he does not run well. I understand the 4.8. He had a hamstring, so you round it up to a 4.7. And I understand that Steve Largent and Jerry Rice ran 4.7s. The Titans are not finding Steve Largent and Jerry Rice as undrafted rookie free agents here. The most likely scenario for Xavier Restrepo is that he replaces Mason Kinsey on the practice squad, and potentially next year, if he pans out as people suspect, the best case scenario is that next year he has a chance to make the 53. I don't see it. I understand that he was good at getting open at Miami. He's got really thick legs that keep him from being fast. You don't have to be fast to be a successful receiver in the league, but you have to have more than it looks to me like he has.
52%.
He only gave you a percent after I answered the question correctly.
I'm just trying. He didn't ask for that.
And you said a good chance. 52% is a good chance?
I said good chance? Yeah. I don't think I said good
Your
chance.
answer sounded
he
like
he was going to make the team as the sixth receiver.
Yeah, I'm predicting. What I said was
he said he's going to make the team as a sixth receiver, and then he gave him a 52% chance of making the team.
So wait a minute.
Way to split the baby in half.
So wait a minute. Wait. So if I say
you just lost it right there. Game over.
No, let's see if you can remember English, which was just spoken. I said I predicted he'll make the team. I said I think he'll just barely make the team. And I said he'll make the team, and then I said he has a 52% chance, which is more than 50%. So none of those things contradict each other, Paul.
He'll make the team is 100% that he makes the team.
Oh, my God. Are you kidding
David,
me?
am I wrong here?
There's a 52% chance that he will 100% be the sixth receiver on this team. That's what I heard.
Okay. We're all on the same page except for you.
No, what if there's no? What are you talking about?
You said he'll make the team.
I'm predicting he'll make the team. I give him
so
a
that's
52%
100% chance of making the team.
Oh my God, Vingan, you are a guy who likes math. I know that you will save me on this one. Holy crap!
Some Scott Steiner math there, but I'll take all of this into consideration for the final tally. But let's get to our final question. We'll start with Paul Kaharski. Paul, please pay Jared Stillman a genuine compliment.
Jared Stillman consumes more sports media content than any human being on the planet. And he uses that content to spin off his own content in a way that's unparalleled.
That's pretty good. I
can't tell if that's a compliment though or a backhanded compliment.
I mean, you know it's going to be backhanded.
That was a compliment.
I think that was nicer than I would have guessed from PK. Do you want me to do that too, or are we just doing this with PK?
I sure do. You go ahead, Joe.
Oh, he's got no problem smooching Jared.
Oh yeah.
I mean, his mouth is dirty from doing that on a regular basis.
Exactly. I would say my compliment would be that Jared can be talking about something completely inane and can have a topic coming up that's completely idiotic, and yet he teases it so well that I have to come back after the commercial. I think he's a wizard.
That's a horrific compliment.
Okay, 52%. More than 50% chance of making the team, so I'm going to predict he's going to make the team. It's 100% chance. You are, oh my God. I can't. Was the Ivy League different in the 1960s when you went there?
Can the judge speak, please?
Oh. Okay, Vingan, who wins?
So, all right. So, I am pleasantly surprised that Paul was able to generate a genuine compliment about Jared Stillman. Although I wonder again if it's mostly backhanded. But Joe, you can't say that a player is going to make the team and then give him a 52%.
Oh my God! Yes, you can.
No, you can't.
Sweet victory!
Holy crap! All right, that's fine.
You can't.
Adam,
finish the show if you like, Joe, while you drive home in shame.
Adam,
the drive of shame.
I'm predicting he's going to make the team barely. I think he's got a slightly better than 50% chance of making the team. There's no way that means I said he's 100% to make the team. You're all crazy.
Is he or is he not going to make the team? He's going to make the team.
100% or 0%. Everything is binary, 0 or 100. Are you kidding me?
You answered it binary.
You guys.
You answered it initially binary. You said he's going to make the team.
This is obviously a conspiracy, but thank you for taking part.
Adam, you did an excellent job. Much better than I expected, frankly. I thought you'd be a homer, and you weren't. And I appreciate that.
I'm a Joe Homer. I'm a Jomer. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I thought you were going to be a Jomer, and I'm going to go home, and I don't do this much, but I'm going to take off my socks, and I'm going to put on some damn sandals in your honor.
There we go. And when we come back, thank you, Adam.
The privacy of your own home, it's fine.
Oh, okay. Guys. I'm going to go on the street.
One more segment. Maybe we'll talk about men's footwear or about how everybody's crazy around here. I almost said Jared versus Joe. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Final segment of Stamina Company. It's been fun today here. Joe Rexford here with Paul Carhusky. There you go. It's been fun here in the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, Air Conditioning, Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz always about great service. So last segment, PK, we got to get to this. But, wait, real quick, though. So is Xavier Restrepo making the team? You predict no.
I gave him.
You predict no?
Yeah, I predict no.
You predict no.
I predict no.
So that was 0%, right? Oh no! Oh, you said 28%. Really?
John, too late. I won.
Yeah, you got smoked. You got smoked, and that's what matters.
There's one judge,
you and Vinkin
we
can
go with the judge.
You and Vinkin can go sit with an abacus somewhere and try to figure out math.
We go with the judge.
All right.
I beat you on several levels, not just on that level.
Yeah, well,
all levels.
Okay. All right. All the levels. All right. Well, let's get into this. We have to get into this. Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson and others. There is now a pathway for them to get into the Hall of Fame. So before we even get to that next step, what do you think of that? What do you think it means? Are you surprised?
I am surprised because baseball's been very consistent on this. I think Manfred is kind of a pushover. These other commissioners do an amazing job of making Roger Goodell actually look good when he's not. But I said all along, my stance on Pete Rose was let him in as soon as he dies. I just don't think he should get to enjoy it because I do think his crimes were serious. And I'm surprised how few people get that. Come on, he bet. What you bet on your own games, that's a significant crime. It's on the big sign entering the clubhouse of every team. But I do think it's a museum, and these people are significant figures in the history of baseball who should be in the Museum of Baseball.
Yeah. I read something today where he actually is already in it 31 times for various things he's been involved in. But I generally agree with you. And listen, it's not just that he did it. And yes, betting on his own team. No, there's never been that I've seen anything about him betting against his own team, which to me is another step.
But see, on the day you don't bet on your team, you're betting against your team.
Right.
If you're consistently betting for your team.
And then, of course, he lied. And then, of course, I think he could have helped himself a lot over the years and didn't show contrition and just didn't handle it well. And it's like, and I think not just about not enjoying it, but I mean, look, the guy has been at the Hall of Fame, a Hall of Fame weekend, charging $50 a pop for autographs. I mean, he's handled it terribly. And so I think also they were worried about what it might be if he's inducted and he's there and giving his speech, right? So now I've seen other things floated about why this happened, but I'm surprised. I'll be very interested to see. For people who don't know, the writers voting him in, that ship sailed about 20 years ago because it's 15 years after you retire. So it's these veterans committees, a couple of years.
27, I think.
Yeah, it's a couple of years, but these veterans committees will now. It'll be very interesting. Do you think that he will ultimately get in?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think he'll get in.
You think
27.
no question? It's like I think it's it's like it's 75% still of this committee, whatever.
But this committee doesn't get put together until 27. And so then how do you pick the committee? Who picks the committee, and how are they prejudging these guys on whether they are pro or anti-Rose?
Like jury selection?
Yeah.
Is it?
Your Honor, we dismissed juror number 7 because he's pro Rose.
That I didn't know. Is that true that they're totally it'll be a totally new?
That was based on what I read today. That's my understanding, that the people are not put together until the year of that cycle.
Okay. Ed, real quick on the text says, this is embarrassment for baseball. Wait 35 years, then wait till he dies and lump him in with a player who threw a World Series. I also think, PK, that this represents reality of, well, let's face it, gambling in sports is it's completely in bed with each other, the sports world, the gambling world, whereas it wasn't that long ago. It was very different.
And something bad's coming. Something bad in the next 10 years will probably happen in a major sport. We've seen some small stuff. Somebody's going to do something stupid and big that's going to make for a vast reconsideration of this whole thing.
See, that could be a really interesting discussion, because I do think that now, if there's a good thing about it, and I think there's definitely a lot of bad with it, it's just that the quick access that so many people have, and can be a crippling addiction. I actually think the oversight on it now, though, is way beyond what it used to be when you'd have these point shifties. So So, I mean, you may be right still, but I do think there are some positives in terms of the visibility of everything.
And the Shoeless Joe comment, I mean, his numbers in that World Series pretty damn good.
They were. But at the same time, he took the money.
Yep.
So that's a great movie, by the way. 8 Men Out. Check that one out. People don't talk about that enough in baseball movies. Last words, PK.
I thought this was a spectacular 3 hours. I was thrilled to be here. If you missed any of it, you should listen again. I still believe that children are our future, which is where we started. And I was thrilled to be back with David Reed, the best producer in Nashville radio. And Joe Rexrode, pretty good co-host.
Let's do it again in another 3 years.
Okay.
Well, I mean, every Stilly vacay, you know.
Stilly's hate tweeting me. I mean, the guy cannot not.
He's hate tweeting you right now?
Yeah. Dredging up old stuff and deflecting, of course.
Oh, I got to check this out. All right, I'm going to check that out on X. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll be back tomorrow.
PaulKoharski.com schedule review coming up in about an hour.
102.5, 106.3 The Game.